yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, in your opening comments, you said this was an unusual case. I would say that's the understatement of the year. Husband of the subject meets with the Attorney General 3 days before Secretary Clinton is interviewed by the FBI. 9 people get to sit in with Secretary Clinton during that interview. One of those was her Chief of Staff, Cheryl Mills, who was the subject of the investigation. 5 people get some kind of immunity. 5 people get some kind of immunity, yet no one is prosecuted. 3 of those people who get immunity take the 5th in front of Congress, and one of them doesn't even bother to show up when he's subpoenaed. He's supposed to have been at that very chair you're sitting at. And, of course, the Attorney General announces that she's going to follow your recommendations, even though she doesn't know what those recommendations are, the only time she's ever done that. So, of course, this was unusual. We've never seen anything like this, which sort of brings me to the post. I'd like to put up the post that some have talked about, which is the post by Mr. Combetta on Reddit. And you said earlier that you don't know if you examined this during your investigation, so let's examine it now. I need to strip out a VIP's address from a bunch of archived email. Basically, they don't want the VIP's email address exposed to anyone. Now, Director, when I hear the term strip out email address, I think of somebody's trying to hide something, somebody's trying to cover up something, and it sort of raises an important question from these 2 sentences. Who's the they who wants something hid, and who's the VIP who also wants something hid? Director Comey, is it likely the VIP well, actually not just a VIP, it's a very, very important person according to Mr. Combetta. Is it likely that that person is Secretary Clinton?
Yes, sure.
Okay, and is it also likely that the they refers to her Secretary Clinton's staff and specifically Cheryl Mills?
I don't know that. Either her lawyers or some staff that had tasked him with the production.
So one other thing that's important on that, if we could put that back up, one other thing that's important is the date. The date at the top says July 24th, 2014. So whenever I see a date, I'm sure you do the same thing, I always look at what's happening about that same time frame, what may have happened directly before that, and maybe directly after that. So I went back to your reports that you guys had given to us. The first report back last month, August 18th, 2016, page 15. On page 15, it says, during the summer of 2014, State Department indicated to Cheryl Mills a request for Clinton's work-related emails would be forthcoming. State Department gives Cheryl Mills a heads up that she's got to go round up all of Secretary Clinton's email. On that same page, it says the House Select Committee on Benghazi had reached an agreement with the State Department regarding production of documents on July 23rd, 2014, just the day before, which I find kind of interesting. Then from your report that we got just last week, after reviewing several documents dated in and around July 23rd, 2014, Paul Combetta had a conversation with Cheryl Mills, and after reviewing a July 24th, there's that date again, 2014 email from Brian Pagliano, Paul Combetta explained Cheryl Mills was concerned Clinton's then current email address would be disclosed publicly. So, sure looks to me like it's Secretary Clinton, as you said, but also that it's Cheryl Mills and Brian Pagliano who are urging Mr. Combetta to cover this stuff up. You agree?
From what you read, it sure sounds like they're trying to figure out a way to strip out the actual email address from what they produce.
Well, they're actually trying to strip it all out. PST file, everything. Here's the takeaway in my mind. Mills gets a heads up, Cheryl Mills gets a heads up in midsummer of 2014. July 23rd, the day before Mr. Combetta's Reddit post, the Benghazi Committee and the State Department reach an agreement on production of documents. Cheryl Mills has a conversation with Paul Combetta. He goes on Reddit then and tries to figure out how he can get rid of all this email. Even though he's not successful then, he has to do it later down the road with BleachBit. And then the clincher. Just last week, he's going online and trying to delete these Reddit posts. He's trying to cover up his tracks. He's trying to cover up the cover-up. So I guess the question is, and someone's asked it earlier, in light of all this, are you thinking about reopening the investigation?
I may have misunderstood what you said during the question. I don't understand that to be talking about deleting the emails. I understand to be talking about removing from the from line the actual email address. But anyhow, maybe I misunderstood you. But
the same guy later took BleachBit and did delete emails.
Sure, yeah.
So my question is, the guy you gave immunity to, the guy who took the 5th in front of us, is online trying to figure out how to remove email addresses, change evidence, later uses BleachBit, that guy who won't testify in front of Congress, and he has correspondence with Cheryl Mills, a subject of the investigation, Cheryl Mills, who also got some kind of immunity agreement, Cheryl Mills, who walked out for part of the questions during the interview with the FBI. Seems to me that's pretty compelling, and the timeline's pretty compelling as well.
I'm not following compelling of what. There's no doubt that Gambetta was involved in deleting emails.
After conversations with Cheryl Mills.
He had the OSHIT moment, as he told us. And that's why it was very important for us to interview this guy to find out who told you to do that, why did you do that. That's why he was given use of it.
Did you know about the Reddit post when you interviewed him?
As I said earlier, I think we did. I think our investigators did. I'm not positive as I sit here.
Mr. Chairman, the guy's trying to cover up the Reddit post where he's trying to figure out how he can cover up the email addresses. And I find that compelling, particularly in light of the fact that just the day before, he's talking with Cheryl Mills, and the State Department is on notice that the Benghazi Committee wants these very documents. I find that compelling, but obviously the FBI didn't, and this is just one more on that list of things that make this case highly unusual. I yield back.
The director is permitted to respond if he chooses to do so.
No, I don't think so.
From California, Mr. Issa for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, I've got a lot of concerns, but one of them refers to Reddit. At the time that the Department of Justice, at your behest or your involvement, gave Paul Gambetta immunity, did you do so knowing about all of the posts he had on Reddit and capturing all of those posts and correspondence where he was asking how to wipe or completely erase on behalf of a VVIP, so to speak?
I'm not sure sitting here. My recollection is, and I'll check this and fix it if I'm wrong, that we had some awareness of the Reddit posts. I don't know whether our folks had read them all or not. We had a pretty good understanding of what we thought he had done, but that's my best recollection.
Okay. In the last week, en masse, he's been deleting them from Reddit posts. Is that consistent with preserving evidence? And I say that because there's still an ongoing interest by Congress, and only in spite of Reddit's own senior, what they call flak team, trying to hide it, only because a few people caught it, do we even know about it, and is this and other committees interested in getting the backups that may exist on these deletions? I guess my question to you is he destroying evidence relevant to congressional inquiries? And I'll answer it for you, yes, he is. And what are you going to do about it?
That's not something I can comment on.
Well, let me go into something that concerns this body in a very specific way. As a former chairman issuing subpoenas, I issued a subpoena, and additionally, I issued preserved letters. In addition to that, now Chairman Chaffetz issued what were effectively preserved letters. Some of them were directly to Hillary Rodham Clinton while she was still secretary. Others, the subpoena in 2013 was to Secretary Kerry. These individuals destroyed documents pursuant or took it out of federal custody pursuant to our subpoena and our discovery. As a result, they committed crimes. My question to you is, when I was a chairman and I wanted to grant immunity to somebody, I had to go notice the Department of Justice, and you were consulted. Isn't that correct?
In a particular matter?
In any matter.
I don't know whether the FBI is consulted in that circumstance.
Okay. For the record, yes. The Department of Justice does not grant immunity without checking with federal law enforcement to see whether it will impact any ongoing investigation. That's the reason we have a requirement to give notice. When the reverse was occurring, you were handing out like candy, according to some, immunity. Did you, or to your knowledge, Department of Justice, confer with Chairman Goodlatte, Chairman Chaffetz, Chairman Smith, or any of the other chairmen who had ongoing subpoenas and investigations?
Not to my knowledge.
So isn't there a double standard that when you granted immunity to these 5 individuals, you took them out of the reach of prosecution for crimes committed related to destruction of documents or withholding or other crimes pursuant to congressional subpoenas?
I don't think anybody was given transactional immunity.
Oh, really? Now, we have not allowed to make your immunities public, but I'm going to take the privilege of making one part of it public. I read them. You gave immunity from destruction to both of those attorneys, not just turning them over, the documents over, specifically destruction. You did the same thing with these other 2 individuals, Brian and Paul Cabetta. You gave them immunity from destruction.
Yeah, I don't think, well, again, I could always be wrong, but I don't have them in front of me either.
Well, because you don't let us take them out of the skiff, it's a little hard for us too. But the fact is, when you read them,
my answer, I'm pretty sure that what was granted was use immunity. In the case of those 2 people, coextensive with 18 U.S.C. 6001, which means no statement you make can be used against you directly or indirectly. Transactional immunity is sometimes given also by prosecutors, says you will not be prosecuted in any event for this set of facts. I don't think there was any transactional immunity.
well, when I read for both of the attorneys that immunity was granted, it's in both cases said destruction, in addition to the turning over. Why was that? Why would you believe that was necessary, or do you believe that would be necessary? You wanted the document. You wanted the physical evidence. Why did you have to give them immunity from destruction of materials? And because my time is expiring, when you look into it and hopefully get back to this committee, I'd like to know, does that immunity apply only to destruction on the computers delivered so that other destructions by Cheryl Mills could still be prosecuted?
Yeah, again, my recollection is no transactional immunity was given. A protection of statements was given to the Combetta guy and Mr. Pagliano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, thanks. Gentleman recognized. Gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent quickly that a group of documents be included, and I'll summarize them. They're basically the letters and subpoenas that led up to the destruction of documents that were previously held for preservation. Additionally, the blog post from Reddit, if those could all be placed in the record.
Without objection, they will be made a part of the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, sir. Director Comey.